Take my hand, hold it tight. Promise that you'll never let me go, even when we fight. Wrap my arm around you, girl. I promise I won't ever let you go. I'm holding on for life. I gotta know how you feel about me. So many different emotions in my body. I gotta know what you do on our love, 'cause I'm not planning on giving you up. I think what we got going on is something special, yeah. I want to wake up with you by my side, in your arms.
Hey, what's up guys? Where you been at? I've been waiting for you. My name is Michael Buffington. I'm the concept art lead in the game development department, and in game development, we do really cool stuff. In fact, we teach you guys how to make games. Check this out. As you can see, we got beautiful artwork all over the walls, really high level stuff. Students are doing really good work here. But I got something else to show you. Come on. So down here, we got one of our concept art classrooms, and it's full of Wacom Cintiqs. And on these Cintiqs, people do all their 3D and their concept artwork. They draw directly on the screen, and we have a whole classroom full of them. It's super awesome. Check it out.
Hi, welcome.
This is Jacqueline Jockson, AKA Jax. She's one of our concept art instructors, and she's teaching some really cool stuff in this class. Tell us what you're teaching, Jax.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, welcome to GAM 328. This is Monsters vs. Mechs. This is an upper level concept design course here at the Academy. In the first half of the course, we create our own kaiju Pacific Rim style. And in the second half of the course, we concentrate on hard surface design and create our own mech or Jaeger or Gundam to fight our midterm monster. Let's check out some work. Hey, SJ, what are you working on?
Hey, take a closer look.
Yo guys, I got a bunch of cool stuff to show you guys. Come on. So as you can see, everywhere around the department, we have really cool artwork all over the walls. But what I really want to show you is our esports room.
I'm coming.
This is Michael Witzel. He's our tech lead, and he's the head of all the really cool esports stuff that we do here in the game development department. Mr. Witzel.
Hello. Welcome. Come on in. You know, the best part about being here is our game lounge. Here, check it out. Pretty cool, right?
Hey, David, are you busy?
Not for you.
So this is David Goodwine. He's the executive director of the game development department.
Hi, thank you for coming. How we have things set up here is more about the community. Somebody might have an idea about a game or how they're going to make it, and then somebody else has another idea. Community, they feed off of one another.
So if you guys are interested in making games, if you guys are interested in things like concept art or 3D or game design, programming, scripting, game animation, or anything like that, we'd love to see you here one day in the game development department.
Yes, we would.
Take care, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Apply now at redbullcampusclutch.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Esports Level Design Weekly Workshop, Week 3. My name is ArdysOp.
And I'm Mark G. I'm going to be your level design expert for this scintillating episode of Valorant.
We have been building over the last 2 weeks a complete remake of the level Ascent here, trying to go as one-to-one as possible using basic tools and assets from Unreal Engine. And Mark has been doing a great job of making sure that everything that you guys are seeing is perfectly laid out from a very beginner's perspective to creating your own level. And soon, over the next few weeks, we're going to be getting more and more into how level design on just the basic level can actually impact gameplay of esports and basically encompass all aspects of that.
Yeah, so we're in Valorant right now at our Ascent attacker spawn point, and this is what we've been building out. We're gonna show our progress in Unreal here in a second. As already said, we've been slowly building out from the attacker spawn point, slowly talking about the functions of Unreal, how the engine works. All these techniques can be used in just about any engine you want, even if you're in, let's say, just a 3D package like Blender or Maya. So we're slowly going through the techniques of how do I match this level to an existing level. And one of the challenges is how do we connect it to the core gameplay of our game? Obviously, with Valorant, we're talking first-person shooter. We're talking guns. We're talking player abilities. And we haven't gotten into the player abilities much yet because that's almost like another level of complexity when it comes to maybe how to deny abilities going over great distances. But we are talking about sight lines, shooting, how the players get to this attack site, how they leave the attack site. And a lot of it's to do with metrics right now. We're really measuring up and matching what we see. So gameplay has been targeted and talked about and how it works in Valorant, but we haven't got super in depth with the possibilities of how to tweak an area, how Valorant could be, because of the abilities, how we can switch things up, and how minor changes can affect an area greatly.
And yeah, so we're kind of going from just a purely mechanical standpoint and under the understanding that when you add in abilities and whatnot, that will kind of modify the base level of gameplay that's built. Although there are definitely design decisions that are based around character abilities and what certain agents are capable of. One of those things being the whole idea of jumping on top of high surfaces, bouncing off certain abilities that are able to bounce, etc. But for now, we're just focusing on building out the level. And in the last couple of weeks, we've actually created the entire attacker spawn, haven't we?
Yeah, so we should probably jump into that right now. So I jump into Unreal, and we can start to compare. From last episode, I did a tad bit of cheating and added a couple more pieces. From our last episode's conclusion, we had built out all of this. The small pieces I did cheat from last episode to this was we added this little centerpiece. I added this side, we'll call it a shack. And I also added the barrels. I started the barrels last episode and I just finished them. And I added a roof and a door frame on here. So tiny little cheats, trying not to slow down our progress as we head to bomb site A. One other small thing I did, and I wouldn't say it's very technical, is we're going to hit play here. Before we were testing, we did not have a crouch in. So a big part of Valorant is the ability to crouch and shoot. I did add into my character the ability to crouch now. Is it 100% accurate to what Valorant does? No, it's not. Is it giving us a better idea of trying to mimic Valorant gameplay? Yes. Definitely helps us see the varying heights of shooting. I've started setting up enemies at different spots. As we can see, they're very much test dummy enemies. And the point of obviously the crouch is to get better shooting sightline accuracy. So There's lots of walking and crouching in Valorant, and if that ability is not in there, it makes it much harder later on to adjust all these walls, to adjust all these objects for their collision. So one extra addition, the crouch went in, and we won't get into how we did that just yet because it's really easy in Unreal. You could just look up a function and enable it. I don't want to get into blueprints and go down the wrong path quite yet. Blueprints being the scripting system for Unreal. What we want to do is really continue on from 1, 2, and 3 and build from this empty corner heading towards bomb site A or spike site A. So
Yeah,
that's where, go ahead, Artie.
Once we start building out we can really start talking about a couple different things. We dabbled a little bit in terms of how fast a character is able to move, say, from the spawn out to the B corridor or the A corridor that we've built out already. But when we get into the sightlines, it'll be very, very interesting to see how one-to-one we're going to be able to stay on the topic of just keeping it fully, I guess the proper word is ratioed when we're talking about how fast it will take a player to run all the way through catwalk to reach A site versus just going down A main. And while you're building that out, I'm sure that we can find a lot to talk about for the reasons that we have these different changes for, even though they both accomplish the same thing, reaching A site, why there are differences in that.
Yeah, and that is because we're copying, or I guess we say emulating Valorant. We're trying to copy this site. We are trying to mimic the speed of our character and how it moves. So our character is set in its current speed, and as we move around this area, we have been doing things like, how long does it take to go from the top of the stairs to the bottom? 1,000, 2, 1,000. So we do silly things like that. We actually just count aloud. We line up where our gun sights would be. We line up at the bottom of the stairs, the top of the stairs. How long does it take to go from here to here, just by counting? So there's lots of comparisons constantly going on. And hopefully by the time we get to bomb site A, it's going to be close. So can't say it's going to be perfect, but we're going to shoot for that. And if we're constantly checking, we should be close. So here's our current progress.
Sorry, keep going.
Our current progress, we're on the bridge. We've started on the bridge. Like I said, from last episode, I added this, which is not exactly a significant change. It's nothing more than a cylinder. We never had that little shack there. I'm obviously using screenshots to help me with this development process. I could jump into Valorant, which we do, and run around and shoot, but screenshots are also an excellent way to compare how does this wall fit, how does this the height of this wall, what does this area look like, and I could just cycle through and pick my spot here. So this is what I'm shooting to build out right now, is make sure this is accurate with these two buildings. And really all I want to do with these buildings is make sure that they're in the right spot, and the alley here is going to be the right width, and we start getting this layout to be accurate. So between playing Valorant, looking at screenshots, comparing in Unreal, we should get a fairly accurate level layout.
And it looks great already. I'm super surprised at just how fast you're able to create this and how good it looks, because this is like, it's almost perfect what you've made, and it's just using basic tools and copying and pasting, isn't it?
Yes, we're using the very basic brushes of Unreal, which is what you see me selecting here and it's not selecting very well. These are just the basic building blocks of Unreal. They give you the ability to do things like this, subtract from each other. They give you the ability to grab a point or a face and edit it and manipulate it, which I'm really struggling to do now. So what I'm trying to do for right here is simplify this is just grab, is this open? That is open. So what I've accidentally done is leave my editing tool open. That's why it's constantly grabbing faces and points. So that fixed that. So this is great. I have a house with all these different components or brushes making up a building, a house, whatever we want to call it. But towing around these pieces everywhere can be more than a little cumbersome. So actually what I'm going to do here is make sure all sides of it have windows really quick so we can rotate it in the future. So I'm going to grab these windows and copy them and paste them. And I'm going to make the effort to put them on the back side, because I know coming up here, I'm going to rotate this building and use it for all different positions in the world. And if I have all the sides set up accordingly, I will be able to rotate it and do lots of different things with it without worrying to have to create a new one. So let's do the same with this window. And this basic modular building block will allow us to build a whole bunch of different buildings with scale and such.
Yeah, that was my question was, if we create a building like this, is there any way that we would be able to select the entire building that we've created and then just resize it, make it bigger, squish it, stretch it?
Yes, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm going to change it from its individual pieces or individual brushes into a solid piece, a solid static mesh. And from that point on, I can use just a solid static mesh and not have to have all these pieces floating around. You do need to keep one that's individual pieces so you can edit it later, just in case you need a smaller version, one with more windows, things like that. And these decorative elements, these windows, this roof shape, this door, this really adds a lot to the world, even at the level designer stage, because when you have the lights, you have simple textures, simple materials, it just creates an optical illusion if you have a whole bunch of flat planes just intersecting with each other. So this adds dimension, it adds depth, it makes a more interesting gameplay and shooter experience. It also helps the art team in the long run understand what you intended to do here. The art team is not very fond of getting just a big giant box in the middle of nowhere and being like, here, could you make this into something interesting? That's anybody who's had to write a story or paint a picture knows that feeling of, big empty white page or canvas. So it's good to have something to start with that fits the shape.
Yeah, that could definitely be a little bit daunting. I totally understand that.
So now I'm going to finally convert it after my little edit of extra windows and a door, because I want it to be a little more flexible on all sides.
And the nice thing about this is that it gives a little bit of it's almost like a stark contrast between building out the actual level itself, because you are going to be bound by the mechanics and you're bound by what you want the players to do and how you want to shape the gameplay. Whereas when you're doing details like this and art like this, you can kind of go really free form and unload a little bit of creativity on it that you might not otherwise get the ability to when you have to just make sure that players are going to be able to walk from this place to this place. You can't just put a building with windows in the middle of your site. And so just having these little details and stuff like that. And you can see that in Valorant as well. The devs definitely took their time to do little details like that. We see this little worm guy once again, just kind of everywhere. Nice little architecture points everywhere. And it's really cool, because even though the main sight lines, once you get into it, B garage is very, very barren and empty. The actual B site itself is super barren and empty, but when you get to just the points where it doesn't matter too much and you're just trying to fill in to build the world around you, you can see where the devs get very creative in the things that they build just to make the world feel super alive, even though stuff like this won't affect the gameplay, but it is what allows Valorant to feel the way that it does.
Yes, the details, helping build out details early is very motivational to the team, very motivational to the level designer to keep just imagining new ideas, making this just all boxes and then going down this boxy alley or boxy room and trying to envision, oh, it's a gelato stand, or oh, it's a pizza restaurant. That, it's just so much nicer to, as you're going, build little things out, and it keeps your energy going. It keeps your creative juices flowing. It just helps a lot to just come up with better ideas in the long run. So what I've done here is I took my building over here, and each piece I selected. So we could do this with a smaller piece. So if I want to have this piece not be separate and be a unified little shack I can use elsewhere, let's do this. Let's make this one more flexible too. This is the same thing. It's just a series of shapes, brushes. One is subtracting from the other. And I'm going to make a window in this side just so it has a little more flexibility to be able to be rotated from different shapes and sides. Put this here. Put this here. And then let's do the same on this side. And this is just from my experience of building lots of levels, making modular pieces that I could reuse over and over again, scaling them to different sizes. And that, as we go forward, this whole process just gets faster and faster and faster and faster because you have more modular pieces to work with and you're kind of in the rhythm and flow. First few hours, first day or two you work on a level, it's kind of slow. You're just trying to get the scale down.
Honestly, from the first episode to the second episode, I thought that you were just kind of like, picking up the pace because you'd explained everything. But I can actually really see that what we built in the first level at the very beginning of it all was kind of just the start of it. And then once you had that first building built, it was just complete acceleration going forward. And I'm just so shocked that it's only been a grand total of 4 hours of actual level building, and we're already at this point here. This is really crazy to me.
Yeah, and you get more confident understanding the scale and metrics of how fast my character works. You could kind of judge being in Unreal. You have to play the game a lot. So that's one rule you have to do is play. Work with the mechanics. If you don't have finished characters, finished enemies, you have to do things like we've done here and create these little simple enemies to shoot. So what I've done here with this building is what exactly I did with this. I've selected each piece, and now I'm going to create a static mesh out of it, and that will make it a solid object like we see here. So create static mesh. It asks you where to put it. So we'll call it the fishing shack or fishing. So now we have this solid object. And this could be used all over the place. This could be our really quick gelato stand if we don't want to spend the time making a gelato stand right now. So it's good to have other shapes hanging around that you could quickly stub in if you don't want to get into the extra detail and things of that nature. So I've taken that building, created a static mesh, and here they are now, 1 and 2. I know there's a fence here. I'm going to check I'm going to put up from here again. Static mesh, wall piece, static mesh. Copied it, rotated it, putting it in position. And now I'm going to check what is the size and general layout here compared to Valorant. as well as our little manhole cover. I'm not sure what this is in Valorant. I
I'm
believe it
also
goes to the
not
water
sure
or
what this
something.
is. It's like a raised manhole. I don't think
Maybe it's in Venice. I don't think
Yeah.
I've seen that, but maybe. All right, so let's. I'm going to jump into Valorant and compare. So here we are in our starting position. We've run over, come down. We've definitely checked this corner. We've checked this quite thoroughly last episode. I did add the barrel. So I have not made a garbage can. I've made everything just pretty much a barrel. You jump on the barrels, 1 height, 2 heights. So I have this set up as well, which is nothing more than a cylinder. We should make a chair and table prop because it's important to run through the level and actually get stuck and have things to crouch near. So as I come around this corner, we run straight to the fishing shack, up these steps. And what does this layout look like? So one thing is there's a little nook here. I could hide in this area, crouch, waiting for the defenders to come out. So this should be set up. The general width of this alley here, from here to here, should be accurate. We'll have to check that. So if I'm standing here and I go 1,000, it's just over a second, maybe a second and a half. It's about 1 3/4 of a second, or 1/1000th between this and this. Does this line up perfectly? This does line up perfectly. So I'm going to have to create a little inset here, or an extrusion. This wall lines up right with this building pretty much. This wall here. Not going to worry what's back here. We can't get back there. I'm not going to worry what's back here. Can't get back there. It is nice to add those elements when you get bored and you want to decorate. So I'm going to check those right now by jumping back into Unreal. Hit play. So here's our little enemies. If you're getting bored, you can shoot them. So this is real bad shooting setup I created, but I didn't want to make it too polished. Definitely want to stick in the prototype phase, because this is, level designers get stuck in the prototype phase for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew the width here was pretty accurate. We checked this last week. But from here to here, this building, we need to create something that's sticking out here. Whoops, I got to add collision. Got to remember to do that. You go away. So I think this needs to be out here.
Looks, yeah, it looks a little small, but I think it actually might be okay. But yeah, we definitely need that corner added right here. Boom.
So I'm just going to visually line this up. Could use the grid and the snaps, but it'll be messy. So I could add this. Now you're like, well, wait, what about over here? Now we need the building sticking out. So this was actually pushed back a little bit. So let's just pile this one on top of each other. Or I could do this. We could grab this one.
Yeah, it's important to note that Valorant kind of relies on this straight and boxy sort of design, where everything is very square and rectangles, to make sure that you always have a sense of going forward and progressing through the maze. And it's not something that I really noticed in gameplay too much until I started coming out of gameplay a little bit more and seeing all this stuff. Because while there are organic shapes and whatnot in the art, the actual level design itself is very, very straight cut and narrow. It's all about these sheer lines that draw all the way across a site, or that draw all the way across the spawn, like this alleyway that we're working on. That gap between the two buildings, it kind of sets the stage for how the rest of that lineup works, because we've got a little bit of a gap, a little bit of a corner here to hide in, But then as you go up and forward, that same corner exists just in the negative space towards the finish of that wall, and it opens up this way towards Gelato and then just continues out forward in that straight line fashion that Valorant is so good at. And then just as well coming from the back here, when you have this straight line that cuts off and then immediately comes through, once again, you do have a little bit of an overhang on this side just to guide where the gameplay is going, and add just a little bit of a cutoff to make it just slightly, more fluid feeling, more organic feeling, because while this does cut off here, you see that it doesn't entirely cut it off with a flat wall. There are some tables and chairs and whatnot, but this isn't going to guide where the gameplay goes at all. This is just to make it fill in and make it feel good. Whereas, you just come out through this half of the wall and then you're already on your push to fall out this corridor this way. Whereas over on this side, it's a lot more cut and dry, just going this way with a couple boxes to jumble things up. You've got an asymmetrical catwalk coming through with some stairs, but in reality, it is all still very much based on these straight lines and the way that it just wants to continue to drive us into the directions of the site, just to keep funneling the attackers towards the defenders and vice versa.
Yeah, so you were talking about the boxy quality and driving the players to different areas and sites. All the little important details I'm working out right now. For one thing, I'm fixing collision. So by default, when I transformed all of these brushes into a static mesh, I have to make sure there's collision on it. So if I click on it and I browse to my asset, it finds it here. And all I have to do, there's a couple options. I could set a specific collision here, but in the terms of prototyping, we're going to cheat and have the collision be very sophisticated and basically have collision on each face. So every little face you see on here is going to have collision, and what you do with that is you just go to this last setting. Complex collision is simple, and that basically makes mesh collision. If you work in Unity, you'll know that term. You add that, and it maps collision to everything. Very expensive for full-time development, but for prototyping, super convenient and super fast. You take lots of shortcuts in prototyping and testing. You don't want to be spending too much time to edit things and make them perfect for a finished game. You need to test gameplay now. We need to make everything work properly, get the sightline set up. There's lots of changes before we worry about performance. So I'm going to run over here. So I just did this a second ago. I ran straight forward to the fishing shack, moved to the right. This feels pretty good. I'm not sure if it lines up with the door. I'm not going to worry about the door so much as this here. Got my little spot up on the barrel. Jump down. Hug this wall. Get rid of our enemy. Oops, this got a little bit of a hole I got to seal up.
30 seconds left.
Almost
Feels
lined
about
up there.
right. I'll have to double check this, but this feels pretty good.
Yeah,
This
that
thing I have
looks
to
pretty
check
good
the
as well.
height of, but
A little bit taller. I think that's about knee height. A little bit,
Is it?
little bit above knee height. Yeah.
so this is still brushes, so I can edit this quickly. But let's see. Feels close. I don't know if it's perfect, but pretty darn close. Might feel just a bit wide. So I'm going to move these over and fix these really quick. One thing you don't want to do is get too fast, too furious, and ignore all these little things like the gaps. Ignore the fact that this is just a tad bit too wide. Because as you move forward, you'll be building from this existing geometry. And then you're going to have to fix it later, which has a lot of repercussions. Because you
Yeah.
have other things connected to it. Other gameplay has been started. You have to clean everything up and check constantly. That's the big thing of being a designer is play. Don't just build in your 3D modeling software and then check later. You have to constantly be playing. That's what's great about having game engine allow you to build, hit play, test, build, hit play, test, model, hit play, test.
That's honestly especially true just to make sure that you have it all set up in the beginning if we're building from that. One of the biggest things that I've been noticing just flying around is just how much all of these little things seem to interact. And actually, I really do want to get your opinion on this part over here. That I was pointing this out a little bit earlier, but when I did, I knew that this was like the whole design uh, thought process behind it, but I actually didn't really give it a lot of thought prior to really talking about it here. But we have this section of gelato, and the wall comes out and spits you out just past the gelato stand, all the tables and chairs and whatnot, to keep that straight line kind of thought and ethos. But when you go just behind the wall, it's not fully blocked off. It's not just a regular wall and just a fully flat plane to rub up against. You have this little geometry, which is table and chairs, which you can't hide behind. You can't use as cover, but it just kind of it builds this sense of this is a real world that you're playing in. Even though the devs absolutely could have just continued to wall out this way and made it not able to go in and just put a fence or anything, but instead they just allowed the ability to duck in here. And I really wonder why they thought to do that rather than just a wall, just given that it's close to the spawn, it's in the lobby the day before push, and so even if a defender was to push out through and get into a fight over here, it still wouldn't affect it. But it would really just it's so cool because instead of a wall, they'd have this little organic area back here, and it is cut off by this wall so that you won't interact with it in your gameplay unless you intentionally go back here. And even coming from this side, you have the wall that you're approaching, and so you still have your clear sight lines through. It's so interesting to me because they could have just either cut from back here and just made this a clear wall to just keep this all the same width, but they didn't. They had it come out, and then they had it kind of flush out to create this organic cut through here. And I never really thought about it until now. But I don't know what you think about that. Is that something normal, or is that something that's kind of creative? Or
Yeah, I think it goes to a single player game as well as a multiplayer. You want the player to feel like you want the player to relate to the space, the gameplay, the level they're in. If you are playing a game that's like on a quad, like a grid-based top-down game, and it's turn-based, that's kind of a different feel. It's a board game. It's like a simulation looking down on little miniatures moving around. But we're talking about a first-person, fully 3D enveloped level, and having everything go down straight down a hall, take a right turn, and go down another hall, and take a right turn and go down another hall. That just doesn't play well with most game players, and sometimes you just don't know what it is, but you don't feel like this space is all that engaging. You can't verbally say it. It's like, yeah, it's kind of boring. It's not very interesting. Having those little areas that are like, hey, there's a nook here and there's a cafe, you could relate to that. We've seen this in real life. We feel like we're someplace special. Obviously, gameplay is number one. So you design it to work with the gameplay. So someone could be behind that wall, could hear the enemies coming, could launch their abilities. The chairs and tables are very much placed on purpose and tested to create interference, to create the ability to duck a little bit and maybe block some shots from long range if there's spray and scatter going on. So you want the chairs there, but too many, players get stuck. It's super frustrating. If they're in the wrong spots, super frustrating. But yeah, that relating to, hey, this is a cafe. I feel like I'm someplace special. Even though the focus is I'm taking the spike to the bomb site. It does sink into the game player's mind that they're somewhere interesting and I want to be here. I want to play in this space. The way lighting will play off the walls, the way the lighting comes off awnings. We all relate to that because we go in the real world and that's how our eyes respond, or that's how we see it. So it's definitely a conscious decision as you build this out, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's super interesting. Having that sense of player agency will, I guess, yeah, it is a lot different. I noticed that with certain games in VR that are not very detailed, but you also have the fact that it's in VR to rely on to kind of give you that presence. But the games that are really fully flushed out, like Half-Life Alyx or some certain maps in Pavlov, really do change the entire way that the game looks and plays and feels. So I really can understand that. I'm glad that it's like a conscious and known design choice, not just something that happens.
Yeah, I don't think there's certain accidents that definitely will come up. You'll be like, "Wow, this turned out really cool. I didn't even intend to do this," and it just happens. Um, but you're definitely testing it. You're definitely aware of it. You're definitely thinking, "What's the art supposed to be here?" You're definitely thinking, "What story bits can I put there? Is there for this type of game? Is there little Easter eggs or particular images I want to see?" So that it advances the immersion of the player more. It gives more interesting bits for the player to look at and want to investigate into the story. So everything should be thought out, and you really pay attention to just about everything. The way walls look, the way windows look. Right here I'm ducking. We'll call it the sewer cap. We're ducking down the sewer cap, and one thing I notice is my shooting is not super accurate. If I get too close, it doesn't really shoot through it gets stuck on the collision. So that's something I have to be aware of, is even though I'm crouching and it looks accurate to Valorant, can I shoot over it? So if I even bow down a little bit, it gets blocked by collision. And that's just a flaw with my shooting. So I'm compensating a little bit for that. But this visually
some
looks
games
better.
have a mechanic where when you push up against a wall, they kind of punish you for that by making your gun go up, so that you can't get that close or do anything like that. But Valorant, as an arcade shooter, a competitive arcade eco shooter, you have kind of an infinite distance between you and a wall, so that your gun is always going to be able to come out.
Yeah. They definitely would cheat because well, I would say cheat. They just put it into the code to how to shoot and not get shoot through the wall and things of that nature. So this section's feeling accurate. There's one little piece here I think is sticking out that I get stuck on, and mine I have to switch. But this from here to here feels really accurate. The only problem here is I have a big building that occupies this whole space and it's not a wall, so I have to maybe rotate this building. And let's get this built out. I know this backside is already covered because I have a big building. Put down a floor. Put down another big box building. Let's get the gelato here. And think about, watch how much quicker we can make this happen now that we've created a bunch of spots. I still haven't created chairs, but I'm going to hold off on that for a moment. So this is the part that I get stuck on real quick. Gonna move that just to be perfect.
I'm curious to see the backside of the buildings. Like, so to go towards a catwalk, what does that look like right now for us?
You
So
back
just
here?
on the other side.
Oh, you're looking.
Yeah, other side from that, towards a catwalk. So behind the first building that we made. So that's the end of our walkway right there, or here, go back to the manhole cover.
Flying to the manhole cover. So here's the manhole cover.
Straight out,
There we
and
go.
then to the left. We should already have a lot of this. Yeah, we already have this all almost set up.
Oh, I
Just
see
need
what
to
you're
put in the
saying. I got
flooring
it.
and extend that first building that we made back a little bit further, and then that'll all be built out right there.
So definitely considerations that we're probably not going to test quite yet. Maybe later we could bring this up is, hey, the abilities to launch things over the buildings and things like that. That's all going to be tested, obviously, when you're making this game. Probably not going to do that quite yet because I'm sure there'll be some exploits on our side if we had the proper abilities to cheat and get some abilities into the spawn sites or the attack site or defender site quicker than we want to. So I had this all perfectly set up and now I'm rotating it and ruining the whole thing. So let's do that again because I realize we need a wall there. So I'm going to go into top-down mode, hit F to zoom in, and I'm going to, if I can see this correctly, it's going to line this up fairly accurately.
God, that top-down mode is super useful for this kind of stuff, isn't it?
It very much is. Some people use left, right, front, back, top, down a lot. I certainly do in different circumstances, but I also like to fly around a lot. It just keeps me very active, and I'm a little more creative doing this. I can tell this is too wide from what we had before. I think that's better. So now I've shortened this quite a bit. This is going to be our temporary gelato, I said, because... And now let's go get a wall, which would be, voila, the wall.
Yeah, I just love seeing this all come together here because my background is just playing and watching gameplay, but seeing it built in front of my eyes, God, this really is something that I didn't expect to appreciate nearly as much as I do. I see
think
what
the
you did there with the
process,
gelato. Oh, sorry, go for it.
I just think the process of watching someone build with the process and slowly, patiently build it out and, patiently understand what's important and what's not. That just takes a lot of doubt out of someone's mind as they build. And, hey, I want to emulate a whatever level you want to emulate, single player, multiplayer. Just gives you confidence to see someone who's done it before, and you're like, oh, this is the path to go on, and I can just do this, and I constantly get that routine of doing it. Everybody has different comfort zones, and there's so many different ways to build this with different paths. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've never really taken any sort of game design classes myself, and I've only dabbled very briefly in level design and creating a game. But I honestly feel like going just from the what now it's been 5 hours that we've worked together that I could actually start to put something together.
Yeah, that's the hope. Someone start dabbling in Unreal, getting a little more confident that I can do this, see the results. Also understanding what's acceptable presentation wise, what's a professional level block out, what's not. That's a big question mark too. And the more questions you have, I think the more anxiety you have as you try and learn something. You just feel insecure. So if we jump, we can't see over the wall, can we, in Valorant?
No,
Yeah, so this has got to be a lot higher.
only jet. Actually, no, that looks good. No, that looks good because you can see over the wall, but just only
just a
like
tad? Oh,
just
okay.
the top. Yeah, can't see anywhere near the ground though. So I think that height is actually perfect. You eyeballed it pretty correctly there.
Oh, you're right. I think this is accurate. Look. Yeah, there you go with Jet. Like her jumping abilities just, we have to, at some point, you're going to have to be using the characters and testing them out. And if we don't have those characters right now to play with, and that happens a lot in development, it's like, well, how could you develop a game without the characters set and the mechanics set? It's like you just go and you adjust it and rebuild it and adjust it again and rebuild it again. It's just kind of how it works. Sometimes you have to rebuild the levels multiple times as characters and abilities get set. So we're going to take the ultimate shortcut here and just call that gelato. But now, whoa, we got to make this a little more friendly to walk on. And I'll cheat. Go back into my brush mode and just pull out a couple faces here. Doesn't want to select my face. If I drag this one out, is it going to mess up this side? Let's see. Yes, it'll mess up that side, so let's not do that. All right, so let's leave that for now. And let's see if it'll let me
Now,
just start
what
right
is stopping us from just doing that and pulling it all the way out and then just using a subtractive to fix it and clean it up?
Subtractives, overlapping your subtractives and additives is very powerful, and it's great to do a lot of things with. But when you have a lot of subtractives and additives starting to overlap and pile on top of each other, because they can get out of order, if there's a lot of things overlapping, it becomes a real mess and you can't fix it. So you kind of want to go little by little and minimize that. And when you can, you turn it into static mesh so you don't have to worry about the brushes adding and subtracting and the order getting messed up. And what I mean by the order is this. So we have this subtracts from this brush, but if I was to create another box out of this, copy paste, you can see they're not subtracting from this new box. So that's because in the order of things, and this is pretty common in a lot of 2D software, who's on top. Like I have a graphic interface, what's supposed to be drawn on top. So it kind of works like that. And since this was the last created, it's basically the highest priority order. So this is not the highest priority order, so it's not going to subtract from it. It gets a little confusing, but if you've done other graphics, it doesn't seem that
So
out
it's
of
basically
whack.
like order of operations in math.
Yes, there you go. That's a good example.
Incredible.
So right now this can't be subtracted from by this window unless I do this. I can go to the order tab and say, and the naming of this is really confusing. Basically said this means last created, which I find odd. So last created, oh, now I'm subtracting from that. So if you have a lot of that overlapping and you have a whole bunch of brushes and boxes all piled on top of each other, it gets really nasty. And if you make one mistake and you don't catch it and you come back a couple days later, you're like, what is that? I don't know how to fix this. So it's good to kind of slowly build things out, turn it into static mesh, slowly build things out. There are shortcuts you can do. So let's put a hallway here.
Yes, going to need a small... There we go. Yeah, what's nice about this section is that it is all on one flat plane. Basically all the way up until you get into halfway through a site. And then that bump also somewhat lines up with tree. And then also once you get out past mid, and then it drops down a level. But I also had one more question about the whole order thing. Are you able to organize layers to help with the order?
On layers, it works a little bit different in Unreal. You can do, I'm trying to think how to utilize. There's certain elements that have that type of behavior, but it's not so much with the brushes. So a lot of it's organizing into folders. It doesn't work like Photoshop, and things like that.
I see. Okay.
So I'm trying to think of a 3D program that kind of behaves like that. I'm trying to think if Maya has that. Off the top of my head, I don't remember quite yet. You do have layers, but they're more about organization in Maya. So I could have all of my trigger volumes here and all this here. And then in Unreal, it's more folders, and that's how you organize it. So from here to here, it's about... Whoops. So I just checked the time on that. Now I'm going to switch back to Unreal and compare the scale real quick. So I'm going to change. I'm going to move my player start. Stop wasting time.
And yeah, so we're making sure that all of this scale and whatnot is done correctly the first time, because this is going to affect the way that we build out our A site, and we want to make sure that everything is going to stay very collectively to the correct ratio and scaling while we do that.
Pretty close. So I'm just running this gauntlet here, or the edge of this to the end, and just counting inside my head. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, and then doing the same in Valorant. Silly ways to do things, but it does work. So 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. That one's closer to 4, so maybe just a tad bit longer. So I'm going to adjust that a little bit.
I'm curious to see if any of these meshes have been reused as well. Any of these textures, like we see this art here of the vineyard and the little thatches going through, and I feel like that there are some reused motifs coming through, but honestly, I'm more interested in this kind of art here when we see the meat shank with that's still steaming a knife through it, and all these plushies just sat here, and it's just really funny because it's just this random side story that's being built, and this worm that kind of is everywhere. There's so much fun art going on just next to all of this really cool level design. There's just so much of it.
Yeah, those are the little things I think the art team and the design team loves doing, especially when it has meaning. You know, if you can add some depth and meaning in games, it seems like games have been understanding that for a very long time now. Adding every little piece of art can be interpreted, and especially with social media and the ease of communication and communities, we want to talk about these stories. We want to figure out what's the secret here. So designers definitely think about that a lot. So do the artists and the creative team itself. So this is a little bit different. So it's definitely fun to add those elements. Everyone wants a secret level, a secret pickup, something collectible. All that's very much in the mindset of the development team to add more depth to the game.
I think that my favorite example of that is in Battlefield. In the middle of these massive multiplayer levels, you have a series of Easter eggs that you can solve in order to make something happen, like a giant shark come out of the water, or a bunch of different stuff. It's always very fun to see that.
Oh yeah, those just get crazier and crazier now. Oops, this is the one that has to move over. So I've reached a dilemma where if I move this is going to mess up this space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this face
and widen it.
I'm just going to widen it using the editing tool. So I'm going to pull it out a little bit. Now, obviously my roof's going to be a little bit off, but that's okay. I don't think anyone's going to care right now that the roof looks a little bit off, but I have to move my windows accordingly, which are now buried inside the wall. So getting good at navigating in a 3D package takes a little while too. It's nice that they have the WASD fly, beautifully set up fly keys, just like you would in a regular video game.
Yeah, it's almost like playing a video game in and of itself, isn't it?
All right, so that's better. It is. You really do fly around and feel like you're just in control of a game. You just keep that creative that creative, those creative juices flowing. You don't feel like you're working. All right, this is good. Now let's check out the width. So you can tell I'm speeding up now. I want to get to bomb side A, but we keep this accurate. So the width from here to here. Now I know this is accurate. The end of this wall, I know this is accurate. So now we need to put a building here.
So it looks like that wall, just double it, and that's the width of that walkway there. That wall cuts off that walkway about halfway, doesn't it?
Oh, you mean the gap from here to here?
Yep. I think that is.
Whoops.
Oh, as long as we have the gap right on gelato, then yes, because there is a gap in gelato where that comes back. So if we want to pull up the double screen here with my view from the top down, there is this slight gap here where the wall, you can come back in through the side where it's not entirely straight. But I think that this wall, the part that it comes up, I don't know how to describe this in my not art brain terms, but where this wall here cuts off from where the building meets, I think that is exactly half of this platform, or it's a little bit less than half this platform.
Yep,
here.
I see what you're saying.
I think we can use the wall as a metric.
Visuals are a picture's worth 1,000 words. So from here to here, basically doubling it. Although this might be, my spacing here might be off, huh? I might have to move this out. I think I didn't make this big enough. So see, if I mess this up, then suddenly we're comparing it to something that's not accurate. So I'm going to fix this really quick. I'm just going to drag that face out some more. Oh yeah, there we go. It's getting better. All right, I think we're a lot closer now. And I just messed up my windows again, but that's all right. I'm going to leave those windows. So what I'm going to do for this building is use this one, which is static mesh. Copy paste it. I'm going to go down to my top down view. So as you can see, the distance from this wall to the wall to our lots of walls, this building to this wall by gelato, it's about twice as wide.
Yeah, this is where top-down view is really going to come in handy.
So if we just measure it by eyesight, it's about 1, 2, and with this little bit, it's about 3 squares. So from the end of this, we have 3 more squares. 1, 2, 3. So it should be right about there. And now we can fly around like we fly around in Valorant. And how does that building match to the alley?
Looks like it matches pretty well, though there is more overhang to the right over gelato.
I think this space looks pretty good. Oh, I see what you're saying. So this needs to come out and protrude out a little bit. And then this, we'll measure this distance later. We're just going to work on gelato out. So from here to here, and then we'll double check it by playing and trying to shoot around that corner. And I'm just going to scale this. It's just a very simple building. I could probably scale it later as well. And that's got to be bigger because I know it goes farther than that. So this is where I get into, I could add another building to it later to make it longer, but I want to get this side accurate for now. and it's going to have to be wider.
Trying to use WASD and SketchUp after coming out of Unreal always sucks. I can definitely understand that when different programs have different controls.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure you can add a script to Maya and things like that to allow the flying, because Maya is a pretty powerful scripting program. But so 1, 2, 3. But yeah, a lot of them still don't have it built in, which is a bummer. It's like it's the best thing in the world, just flying around like a video game. All right, let's try this.
That looks pretty accurate.
Where am I? I got lost. See, I turned it on and I didn't even know where I am because there's too many gray walls with no lighting or anything. So if I'm hugging this wall and I'm trying to shoot around the corner, when does it start to peek out? So being at the edge of this building and looking, how much do I see there?
That's a good way to think about it. You actually see quite a bit.
Whoa, I'm in fly mode. There we go. So I get to the very end. I could just barely see the edge. See about this much. Let's see how we compare that. So am I at the end? Pretty close. Probably just a little bit more, huh? Or actually, no, that was the width was good. It was this. See if that fixes it. Actually, I think that's pretty close. Gotta check these measurements here, which I keep turning on the wrong.
And now, from what I understand, a lot of this also does have to do with FOV as well. And in Valorant, as a competitive shooter, the FOV is actually locked, is it not?
I don't actually know that.
Yeah, so I believe that your FOV in Valorant is locked. There's no way to adjust that, and that is for a very specific purpose, to keep everybody on the exact same level. Make sure everybody has the same advantage, and that everyone has no competitive advantage over the other by being able to see more on their screen at any given time. So by giving everyone the same FOV, you also can build those sight lines to be perfect. And so if the FOV in Unreal that we're building is slightly lower or slightly bigger, that could also change a lot of these sight lines. But I don't actually know what the target FOV is in Valorant.
Yeah, I didn't look into that either and set up our character to match that perfectly. So as we go forward with, that's the big trick of developing early prototypes. Your characters will change quite a bit, and you will need to. So I'm going to move that out a little, and I think I'm going to make this one a tad bit wider because I'm having trouble. It could be the field of view, variances in our player character, camera. We're not going to have the perfect match to the Valorant player character. So the mechanics and the metrics, if you don't have an exact fit, it's rough. Like, you're guessing, you're doing your best, and then as characters change, it's like, whoa, this character can jump over this. This character can launch ability over this. This character's ability now goes through walls. So you're going to have to go back and adjust the level again or rebuild the level from scratch. A lot of early levels are thrown away because there's just too much that's changed. And that's just a consideration. Be ready to throw away your early work.
I see. That's very interesting to me. I wonder how much the original Ascent level actually changed between pre-production and now?
And we will be able to ask someone in the coming weeks, I hope.
Yes, we will.
I
Very,
hope
very
we
excited
will
about
ask
that.
them, but I'm hoping they have a really good answer.
Be super, super fun.
Sometimes you just don't know, You're like, I don't remember. Sometimes you work on games so much you almost want to forget. I'm kind of glad I never worked on a game like a giant open world game. Well, I did work on one open world game. I worked on Spider-Man: Web of Shadows, which I played the last Spider-Man for a PlayStation. This PlayStation exclusive, fantastic game. It took everything that every Spider-Man game has had and just made it awesome. But as I played it for hours and hours, I felt like I was at work. Way back when on Web of Shadows, and I was just like, I can't play this anymore.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, you can work on a game a really long time, and it's just burned into your memory that what you're doing as you're working. At least if you're doing it right, I think that happens to most of us because you have to spend so many hours focused on every minute detail. It's really difficult. So this is feeling really good. I think I'm not going to do this corner right now, but it's close and could be adjusted without a catastrophic failure later. So what I need to do is make sure we get from Gelato straight down here and around this corner. We really need to get that done so we could feel confident at bomb site A. Next episode, bomb site A could be set up and really start talking more about the esports, tiny little implications of every decision we come up with and all the little changes that are going on. So at Gelato, let's see the general layout. How wide is this and what's at Gelato? So I'm right at Gelato. So from here, this goes straight across. So these are boxes. So we have nothing more than, let's see, let's measure this first. Over 4,000. And then it goes straight back to this area with boxes as extra cover. I keep hitting that same key.
And to be clear, we are just kind of encountering kind of a unique situation here in that we're just trying to fully emulate either a picture or a reference image or a reference video given to us by whatever team, or in this case, a reference level that we're just trying to create one-to-one. So this is kind of a unique situation that we're trying to overcome right now, isn't it?
It's a really great learning tool. So you will be given reference images, concept art to emulate, and that definitely. And these walls are really flat. I think I'm gonna change this building. There's just not enough definition, and we could go over some other shortcuts how to add more definition. I'm gonna use this building again, so we could see the lighting better. You are given concept images, you are given reference, and you. A lot of the time, you're giving very specific ideas of the gameplay, what they want to have happen here, some story bits. Like, we really want to tell this part of the story, and it involves this part of the world. So you have to do your research, and you have to be thinking that way. You can't build giant skyscrapers and endless tall buildings, and yet it's supposed to be inside of a small, intimate little medieval town. Like, you have to pay attention to the source material. So instead of running around and testing in an existing video game, you do techniques like you'll look at the concept work, and I guess we could look at one of these screenshots. You're looking at, let's say this is a concept painting, and you are physically thinking like, well, if a person was here, how big would that person be next to this door? And so that would be your scale reference. And this door looks kind of small right there. It kind of looks like an old Venice doorway, but that's your reference to reality. the head of the player probably wouldn't hit this sign. So this is taller than, say, 7 feet. Your player's not going to just walk by and run into it. So these are your little focal points to do very similar comparisons and how to capture the scale. As I go through some of these shots, chairs. These are human scale chairs, human size scale chairs. These are human size scale doors. So then you start measuring with things like actually measuring this with a ruler and going across and thinking how many doors is it across here. So you could do things like that instead of running around in the Valorant level itself. You can use the images or the drawings to do this.
That's very, very interesting. I honestly never thought of it because I obviously know, like, oh yeah, you've got a concept reference that you want to just build out, but thinking about it of the perspective of like those little details and how big those are in relation to your player and the player agency that would come from those things, I didn't even think of it from that way, that style.
Yeah, everything's based on in this game, or pretty much every game is like, what is the main character scale? And I mean, the general term is metrics. We're constantly saying metrics. How fast
Mhm.
do they run? How far do they jump? What is the shooting act like? What do their special abilities do? That's all the metrics. And so you usually have test levels that have grids everywhere. And you could see, like, I ran this fast, I jumped this high, I jumped this far based on some grid textures put into your level. And those grid textures are usually just very simplistic ways to check that everything is accurate. And you'll see that in all games everywhere, usually set up. And if you see professional game levels, level designers making their game levels, they tend to have a mix of art, and it looks a little bit messy. And so if you're an aspiring designer who wants to get a job, you can't build things as messy as a professional level in the middle of development, because they're in the middle of development. You're trying to make a perfect portfolio piece. So that's one thing to consider as a prospective designer.
That is kind of a recurring theme in art that you have to have perfected the rules in order to break them.
Yeah, and you start understanding what something, that mix of, oh, it doesn't have to be perfect, art's going to come in later and fix it up. You start understanding that mix of what's appropriate and what's not. Try to think which one is off here. This needs to match this.
I think it would be the building to the right. I
This
think
one was actually accurate last I checked, unless I'm wrong, which is many times. Is it that wide? Looks huge. Gelato.
Actually, it looks pretty good.
Oh, it is that wide. There's just so much clutter.
Yeah.
So now we get to build real boxes. It's boxes and more boxes with pigs.
Now we get to build boxes and not feel bad about them.
Yes. Always do that. So I don't have to do anything in this one. I can just build boxes. So back to the beginning. Our geometry are brushes. Actually, let's just make them already static mesh. So let's just go to basic and you'll find a cube static mesh right here. So remember, the static meshes we converted from brushes are these. And these are the same. They can't be manipulated with subtractive and additive. They're much lower in memory footprint. They don't have to be calculated and constantly updated like brushes do. So they're they already have collision, just much simpler materials to build from. And you can combine static mesh objects together, so they do. But you can't manipulate the faces and points like we've been doing. And so for a shortcut, I'm just going to use my screenshots over here on the left to emulate what I'm building out. I think I've changed my folder. There we go. Over to site A. So we have different screenshots.
So let's see. As far as boxes go, they're all actually around the same height. We've got half boxes for jumping on. We've got then we've got these concrete boxes, which are the same size as the these light artifact things at the spike zones, and then over here we've got the pig crates, which are also the same size as these spike boxes. It's very interesting how these are literally all the same size, but they just slapped a bunch of different textures on them. And then I believe that this generator is actually slightly thinner than these green first light boxes, or whatever they may be, but it is also a lot wider and longer. I'm just trying to see if there are any other examples of boxes. So yeah, we got this thing which is 3 half boxes tall, plus the half box height platform. Another half box up here for whatever reason. I think just to prevent backing straight into the corner. Doesn't really change gameplay too much there. It's another half box. We have, oh, here's another box. It's the same size as all of our other boxes that we found so far, except this is like a planter. We've got another manhole cover height thingy. Then we have, I'm trying to find one more manhole cover height thingy. We have half boxes here, and then we've got other differently sized pizza boxes. Once again, good to note, still hot. Then we have this other planter here with the barrel height this time to jump onto it, as well as a bench with that. And it's cool to see, like, there's a lot of detail, but it is kind of all samey at the end of the day here. The first light box is there. We've got this nice staircase here, and then the wall bang panels, always important. Through this, we have this, which is the same as our worm shack from all the way over here. It is roughly the exact same, just art is a little bit different. And then on the site, one more wooden crate this time, kind of like the pig crate, but different art on it. This time it's fish, half height box there. Over to this side, we've got our first light boxes, half height box, and a regular height box. But this is also a little bit interesting, and I am sure that we'll talk about this at some point, but this slope that comes up makes it not fully straighten out. And I wonder, I am definitely going to be asking our friend at Riot about that to see if there's any specific reason, or if it was just to make the site feel a little bit more organic. And then over here, yeah, our last half height box with 2 barrels up on the top here for the specific purpose of these characters that are able to teleport and fly. But that's, I think, about it for as many boxes as we have. So I think we only really need to make, one size box, but just throw 3 different meshes on them to make them differentiable.
So I am following your lead and making 3, was it 3? Is that what you said?
Yeah, 3 different textures.
So this one is, I can't jump, I have to jump to see over. It's quite large. There we go. I don't know if I can shoot over it. This one is much smaller, and when I squat next to it, that's actually probably a little too small. Allows me to jump on this one. Can. So that one's getting close, but I think it needs to be more like 1. So it's about half the size of the other box.
I have found
Again,
a bug
we're
that I will
testing these
report to
sizes
Riot
based on
Games.
gameplay. So more modular pieces that once perfected are reused over and over. I could jump and shoot. I don't know how accurate that would be. Jump up here, jump up there. All right, let's test in Valorant. Can't see over it. Jump. Looks like I jump a little bit higher on this one, but pretty close. Crouch. Oh, let's just shoot for fun. Blinded. Oops, I keep hitting my wrong guys. Crouch. There we go. This actually feels pretty good. Feels pretty good. This one just needs to be placed over there. Cool. This is pretty darn close. So this setup is good. And now this one, whoops. We have one at the end with some barrels we'll grab. Then we have to determine these big giant things. How tall are these?
Oh yeah, the double height ones, huh?
Is it just double the wood, or?
It is just double the wood actually, because these well, okay, so we've got two things that we're talking about. We've got the first light boxes, which are the same height as our regular size crates that we've made one of already. And then we've also got these walls here. And these walls, we can actually use these crates to kind of go for. So actually, I stand corrected. There is a second box height.
Oh, I see it.
Here.
This one.
Yeah, so that's like a
little
medium
taller.
box there.
It's a little bit bigger than this one. All right.
But if we look in for this here, it looks like it is the height of two crates stacked atop each other, and then a half crate on top of that. So it's 2.5 crates tall for this wall up here. And this is a very important distinction.
Do a little count here. 1, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. Feels like it's out to here where this wall juts out. So I need a lot more space here. So putting, say, this wall over there. And I'm going to keep the pillars just to break up the flatness, because, like I said, the lighting and things getting flat kind of creates a surreal experience. It's good to have breaking up of the space, the light. So this was right there. I'm going to have to scale this up, stretch it out. Which I think, actually, could I just duplicate it? Overlap? I might just duplicate it, overlap it, make it easier. So let's duplicate it, overlap it. Looks a little messy, but I think that's fine for now. See if it flickers. And then the other wall we have, and I'm just comparing to my image here, because I know the box is accurate. I can kind of visually just look at my image and think about where the wall should be. That should be just a little bit bigger. So every time I make something accurate, I know the scale is accurate. I know the layout's accurate. I can do more guessing and putting together just based on my screenshot here. Mm-hmm. So I know this box is accurate. I know this is fairly accurate. I know these are double height accurate. I've checked the distance from here to here. I've counted this wall distance from here to here. So now I can just do some quick mock-ups and estimates, and when I go check it, it should be pretty close. But again, you must check it over and over and over again.
Yeah, just to keep that distance very, very well monitored, because I believe that right here especially is where the sightlines really start to is where they really start to come into play for the actual gameplay loop of things. You know, how far out is someone able to see when they go forward past the site? How far out is someone able to how far out does someone need to move in order to be safe? How long does it take for the defenders to push a corner if the attackers are also pushing at the same time? It's very, very cool to see this all come together now, especially as we get closer to site here. Just building out, seeing you build out a lobby right now is getting me really, really excited.
Getting closer. So now I need to scale this, but I don't want to mess anything up. So let's just do a top-down check. Gonna scale this object just so it matches up and not add another. So let's just remember where this was. It was just 1, 2, 3, and about a third. Let's scale it up so I can have it work on both sides and not add another object. So 1, 2, 3, and a third.
Oh, that top-down view is so nice.
Now I just need a wall over here. And again, I'm using the pillars. I'm making some differentiations because I need some breaking up of the all the flat areas. It's just too much flat gray and white. Colors get pretty tricky. You really need to kind of stick with desaturated colors. It's very irritating on the eyes and the gameplay to have a lot of saturated colors like right out of the crayon box. You need to kind of mute them down, desaturate them. It helps quite a bit to do that.
Yeah, that's what I
we
love
can
about
start doing that too.
the way that Valorant has it all set up, because the colors are all very natural and muted. And then you have your weapon skins, which can be extremely fun to look at and whatnot, which, you know, incentivizes players to get them. But then also throughout, you do have some very lightly scattered bits of super saturated areas, like this building here that has these small sort of first light boxes. You've got all of these boxes out here that all draw the eye but make it visually pleasing, but not in a way that overdoes it. And so you've got these green boxes to the left that contrast the natural regular boxes to the right, to kind of give that whole idea of, oh, this building here is very unique.
Yeah, it's that's what the art team's for. I think it's quite natural for every designer to want to add all the art they can find because it's just too enticing not to. So you find assets all over the asset stores and in the engines for free. And it's like, I could add this and I could add that, and I'll just put it in there. Hey, it looks great. It usually doesn't look great. It looks like a lot of assets that you spilled out of your toy box just as a kid. You're like, yay! You spill the Legos and all your action figures, and wow, you create this mess. That's kind of what it ends up looking like. So you have to have an art team to really have this focused vision where things are balanced and blended. And yes, the visuals drive the gameplay. Like you said, it gets drabbed through here, and then you get to other areas. There's splashes of color that grab your attention. That's very intentional. They've adjusted those textures and materials, lighting and colors many times. So it's not just accidental that I throw up bricks and a couple wood boxes and it looks good. So this is feeling pretty darn good.
Wow. Yeah, it is.
And I think I don't know about this spacing. I got to check this box spacing.
I think that looks good. I think that just, having my 1,000 or so hours in Valorant already at this point, I'd say that looks pretty good.
Oh, I want to finish this so bad. We're so close.
We are
Bomb
so
side
close.
A. Like, this is cool. You come around this corner, and I'm just feel like, yep, this is Ascent. Come around here. Yep, this is Ascent. This is Ascent. Now that we can play through it for multiple seconds and not just be stuck in looking at this area. When you first see it, you're like, yeah, it's kind of the start of Ascent. But then you start playing it for extent. Whoa!
Oh, I think it's pulling you into Valorant to select your character. We
Yep.
unfortunately
Pulling
got
in.
pulled out of it because only an hour and a half time limit on those custom matches. Sorry about
That's
that.
all right. We'll compare to Valorant. So with this extended gameplay now that we have in Unreal, you run through, and it's like, I feel like I'm playing the game. I'm starting to feel like I can come over here and crouch. I should make it control instead of C, because in Valorant it's control and I keep hitting the wrong button. So now I'm walking, I'm crouching, I'm simulating, and I really need to make that gun sound better. It's starting to irritate me. Sounds like a varmint rifle or pea shooter.
I can hear the yellow balls.
Yeah, and so these are the little things too you start messing with. If you get obsessed with making the perfect gun and you're getting paid to make the level, you're getting off track, but it does pay off to improve this audio. Spend, 15 minutes finding an audio and editing it real quick and getting it up there, because if you're getting irritated, it does build up in your mind. You're like, oh, that sounds so irritating. Oh, I don't want to shoot that. Oh, I wish I had some enemies. Well, spend the time to make some enemies, and just quickly block out the enemies like we have them. Some red dummies that have guns, and you could figure out if the angles are going to work, or at least get a starting point. It's obviously not going to be the final determination, that's for sure, but it will help in the long run. You seem shallow, but maybe not. Checking that these are the same size. Details, 2. Yep, they're same size. Yeah, we are really getting close now.
It does feel super, super close.
And you can see how it's sped up. If we lost anybody in this episode, you're like, wait, what is this? How did you do that? Where did you build this? The videos are up. ArdysOp Esports on Twitch. You can watch them and see. You can see the process. It's because it's much slower the first 2 episodes. Really spent a lot of time looking at brushes and why we're doing this. We really didn't skip anything. The only thing I skipped was I embellished this house a little bit this week in between episodes. I put the roof, which is the same roof as this. Same windows you find as here. So not much skipping. The barrels we put in last week, we need to spread more of those around. This was built out, nothing more than cylinder. This little house was put in, nothing more than a cylinder. Our little enemies we can now place around with more confidence and feel like we're shooting. So yeah, definitely you can look at the earlier episodes and get maybe a little more familiarity. Familiarity, that's a tough word, with the building process in Unreal. But this whole process and thought of how you build a level can be translated to any piece of software. And next episode, we're definitely going to be in the bomb site. We're going to be building out the thought process of how small tweaks in the boxes and the sight lines and the elevations and the pathing is going to affect the gameplay at a much higher level.
I'm very excited to see how that is going to come into play. And next week, once we have A site fully built out, we can really come at this from the angle of esports and really what little design changes will be extremely impactful in the realm of how players are able to do this, what different agent abilities we're going to be able to think about as far as adding in the future, how it will interact with our pre-existing levels, how agents that we already have in mind, or that Riot already had in mind when creating Valorant, we're going to be able to affect what was possible in the gameplay loop, why these certain design decisions were created in the sense of, most of the players will not be able to access these areas, but then you have a certain agent that can jump higher, teleport, and suddenly it changes the scope of the gameplay. Or you have agents whose utility is entirely defined by the geometry of the level. You've got Sova and now Yoru, who can really adjust. They kind of take the limit of why these levels are set up to the exact pixel precision that they are. Another one now is Astra, who you can really set up from a point in the future of thinking of these are the things that we're going to be doing with smokes and pulling in and all these different variations of abilities that she has, but it all comes down to the reach of those abilities in terms of, players are going to have to come around this corner at this angle, or are going to have to be squeezed into exactly this diameter of a circle for this or that. So I'm super excited to, once we get into Ascent, to really talk about that and why things like sloping really have an impact on stuff, and how when we get into building it, we'll adjust things here and there to make it different from Ascent, and we can kind of theorize how much that would change it. And when we start to look at pro gameplay as well, we can see how different teams utilize the level design of Ascent's A site to their advantage, and how they kind of can come into it with a mindset of, this is what we're limited by and this is what we have absolutely no limits on, and therefore it changes the possibility of what's capable. But I would really like to thank everybody who stayed in to watch this episode here, week 3 of the Esports Level Design Weekly Workshop. This spring, Red Bull partnered up with Riot Games to bring you the Red Bull Campus Clutch, so please do not forget about that. The Campus Clutch is the world's biggest university Valorant tournament to college, and they brought this to college campuses nationwide. Now, the Red Bull Campus Clutch offers teams from more than 50 countries the opportunity to compete against players from all over the world for a chance to win monetary prizes and more. And so for more information, you guys can check out redbull.com/campusclutch and register now before it's too late. And if you are an Academy of Art University student and you participate in their qualifiers this weekend, you can win one of 15 Red Bull Campus Clutch boxes you can see on your screen right now. A value of $180, not $150, filled with a SteelSeries mouse and keyboard, and of course a can of Red Bull. And even if you don't anticipate on winning, it is worth signing up and playing just for that. These are given to 15 random participants, not just the winners. So if you haven't already, hit that follow button here on Twitch, and if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. And Mark, is there anything that you would like to say before we fully close this out here? Recap of what we've talked about today?
Yeah, the recap. We are on the edge of bomb site A. We've built out, got a little fast and furious this episode. I'm just adding my finishing touches. I can't stop building now. So I've just finished out this corner. I copy pasted over the barrel. I checked this box, and this height was not even close to accurate. So I believe this wall has to go up as well. So I'm constantly checking, constantly playing, seeing if I can get this accurate. And this is true for, as we said, for an existing game or for concept art. If you're using concept art, or you've just built reference images and you're building from those reference images. So heading into next episode, we're going to be getting deeper into the esports, a little more tactics, strategy. But again, I think we're going to continue with exactly the same philosophy, but we're going to do more gameplay testing. We're going to be shooting more red dummies. We're going to be going into Valorant and shooting and watching where the bullets go. Maybe I'll replace my audio before then, so it doesn't sound like a bad Nerf gun, and maybe improve a few things here and there, just so we get a little more accurate shooting heading into the next episode. But yeah, everything here hopefully is resonating with what you can do to learn to be a level designer, be a pro, the slow building methods and using of metrics and just gameplay testing, as well as utilizing low poly building and when to add windows, when to add doors. I think is a really important element as well. So you can see we have gelato here, which is really simplistic, and maybe as time goes on, we'll add those little fun touches, a little bit of color here and there to add some sparkle to the level. But we'll probably stay in the grays for now as we head into a slightly more exciting episode next week.
Awesome. I really look forward to seeing that in week 4. And you guys already know it's going to be right here on this same channel at the same time. So really look forward to seeing you guys there. And Mark, once again, thank you so much for imbuing your expertise onto us. I greatly appreciate all of what I've been learning here so far.
Thanks, Artie, for your expertise as well. This has been good fun, and let's continue on into episode 4.